My name is Lisa. I don't really know if anyone will find this, but if someone is listening to this, then I suppose someone has. The story I'm about to tell you is rather odd. Hell, even I would have trouble believing it if I hadn't witnessed it myself. So whether you consider it as fiction or fact is up to you. The sun hung high in the sky as the car finally slowed to a stop in a rather tight space between two cars. Finally! Thought we'd never find a parking space. My friend Stacy sighed, quickly cutting the engine and making her way out to the giant crowd that had already formed, awaiting tonight's events. You see, I had just turned 21, and due to this, my friends Stacy and Amber wanted to take me to the infamous Mardi Gras to ring in being 21 right. I hesitantly agreed. I didn't particularly like large crowds, or alcohol of any kind, but they were my friends, and I didn't want them going alone. So here we were, trying to make our way through the dense crowd that whistled at the girls flashing the people on the balconies, and chugging beer even this early. How about we hit some shops first, and then join the party when it gets later, Amber suggested. We all agreed happily, and began to push through people until we reached the sidewalks. They were a little crowded, but it seemed most were on the street itself, which I was thankful for, because I was already beginning to regret coming. We headed for the first shop we saw, which ended up being a mask shop. And of course, Stacy said she wouldn't let us leave until we bought one for tonight. I ended up getting this simple gold one with purple and green sequin designs and feathers on either side. Stacy got one that looked similar to mine, but feathers in the middle, and Amber got one on a stick. As we made our way out, I couldn't help but look at the crowd again, although I didn't really have much choice. That really was all there was to see at this point. While turning back to my friends, though, I thought I saw something on the other side of the street. Something black. Must have been just someone in costume, I shrugged. Whoa, does that say palm reader? Stacy asked suddenly, as both Amber and I followed her gaze. We soon stopped at a rather large sign protruding from a building on the other side of the street. It did indeed say palm reader, even had a huge hand with the all-seeing eye in the middle. Let's go! Stacy yelled as she jogged into the crowd. Stacy, wait up! Amber called, jogging out to the crowd as well. As I watched my friends disappear into the abyss of people, I couldn't help but have this nagging feeling of dread wash over me. Like when you know you shouldn't do something, but you do it anyways. Shaking my head, I quickly made my way into the crowd. It's just because this place is not really my scene, I reassured myself. When I finally made my way through the flock of people, I was met by the sight of my friends looking rather dejected. What's wrong? I asked. Stacy sighed before answering. It's closed. So, I guess we'll have to move on. Oh, I replied, before I noticed the dark in my side vision again. Turning my head, I saw someone in a robe sitting in front of a small, rickety table. Hello? I called to them, but they didn't reply. They didn't even move. Ma'am? Stacy asked, as she began to walk over to the small woman, Amber following close behind. We all stared at the woman, but jumped a little as she finally raised her head. We couldn't see under her hood. Her face was cast in shadow, but as the woman looked at us all, the feeling of pure dread I had came back full force. It was almost palatable as we stared at the darkened face. "She's away, but I can give you a tarot reading if you like," she spoke. Her voice gave away that she was not the little old lady or even older woman we perhaps thought she was. She sounded our age. "Really?" Stacy asked excitedly. The girl simply nodded before she pulled a deck of tarot cards from her loose sleeve. We all watched as the girl shuffled the cards, then asked Stacy to place her hand on the cards and either think of a question she wanted answered or perhaps even ask for a card that represented her. Stacy did as she was told, and when she let go, the girl flipped over the first card. "The Fool," she spoke, and I could have sworn I could hear the smile in her tone. "This card represents individuality, new experiences, and new beginnings that may require wisdom and courage. It also symbolizes being carefree, impulsive, and enthusiastic," she added. Amber snorted. "Fits you to a T, Stace." She laughed. Stacy just rolled her eyes before pulling on Amber's arm. "You can go next then," she stated, as the girl once again began shuffling. The process was repeated until the top card was flipped. The Magician, or the Cobbler. This is a very creative card. It represents imagination, willpower, confidence, creative energy, communication, and skill, the girl told her. Amber smirked at Stacy, as if to say, "My card is better than yours." "Will you be going next then, sweetie?" the cloaked girl asked as she looked in my direction. I felt a chill run up my spine as I stared into the nothingness that her hood created. "Yes, Lisa, come on," Stacy urged, as she pulled me within arm's length of the girl. She repeated the process once more, but as I sat my hand on the cards and began to concentrate, it almost felt like something grabbed my hand. I opened my eyes, but there was nothing. I pulled my hand to my chest and watched as she flipped the top card over. "The High Priestess," she spoke slowly. It was only now that I could get a good look at the cards. The figure wore a mask, and its hands were distorted, longer than human hands, and its fingers came to points. The clothes looked normal, but the being was certainly not human. What kind of messed up deck was this? "Aw, no fair! You get such a royal card," Stacy joked, lightly punching my arm. The High Priestess is a rather complicated card. It represents a woman's sexuality, yet virginity at the same time. It also symbolizes wise judgment, animation, and strong creative abilities, she told us as she began to put her cards away. "Ooh, someone's getting lucky tonight," Stacy teased. I just rolled my eyes, but couldn't stop the blush that raced to my cheeks. "How much do we owe you?" Amber asked the girl, but she simply shook her head. "Thank you so much," Stacy smiled as she grabbed Amber and I and began to walk to the crowd. But as we made our way away from the cloaked girl, I thought I heard her say something. "Consider it a loan." A loan? I looked back at the girl, but she was gone. I blinked, but there was still nothing. The seat and the table still stood on the sidewalk, but the girl was nowhere in sight. I turned to look at Stacy and Amber, who were now dancing happily along to the music blaring through the speakers around us. I laughed at them, soon forgetting my worries about the cloaked girl, as Amber grabbed my hand and pulled me along. It soon grew dark, and I could only shake my head as Stacy flashed what had to be the 20th person tonight. I honestly didn't see how she did it. Maybe she was just more comfortable with her body. Or maybe it was the 5 beers she had. That was probably it. I mean, Stacy was a beautiful girl. Long wavy blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and a nice figure. Amber was stunning as well. Medium-length straight brown hair, brown eyes, and although she had a little more meat than Stacy, she was a head-turner. Then there was me, the little green-eyed redhead that sat watching her friends from a bench while sipping her beer. You know, you're never gonna get any action if you just sit here, Stacy slurred as she walked to me. I simply rolled my eyes at my friend. I don't want any action, I stated, as Amber sat next to me. But the card said you were gonna get lucky tonight, Stacy winked. It said that is what I represented, not what I was going to get, I told her before taking another sip of the bitter liquid. There was another thing I really didn't like. Drunk people. This was just not my event. Leave her be, Stacy. At least we got her drinking. Amber laughed. Stacy rolled her eyes. That's not drinking. She's still on her first one. I shook my head and stood up. They both looked at me before I spoke. I'm going to go see if I can find some place quiet, if that is even possible, I told them before I began walking along the sidewalk. I walked for a while, the crowd really not growing any thinner like I had hoped. They all yelled loudly, hooted and hollered, whistled and wooed. A few guys sent winks and smirks in my direction, but I simply rolled my eyes at them. I decided to turn into an alleyway, to get away from the crowd. I know, a girl walking down a dark alley while there are tons of drunk guys walking around. Not the brightest idea, but I wanted quiet, away from people. As I leaned onto the wall, I closed my eyes and tried to drown out the background noise. But as I drowned out the music and crowds, I began to hear something else. A whisper. Or whispering, I should say. There were many of them, all mingled together. I would have simply blamed this on the crowds, but these whispers, they didn't sound human. I strained my ears to listen closer, but no matter how hard I strained, I couldn't make out any words. I felt a chill run up my spine for the second time that day, and my thoughts ran back to the cloaked girl for some reason. The feeling that something was going to happen, something bad, almost made me vomit what little alcohol I had consumed. Something told me to get back to my friends, as fast as I could. The whispers began to grow louder, but I didn't want to wait to see who or what they were coming from. I dropped my beer and ran as fast as I could through the crowd, to where I had last seen Stacy and Amber. But of course, they weren't there. "Stacy!" I yelled, trying to be heard over all the noise. "Amber!" I tried again as I turned around and looked through all the crowd. Nothing. "Stacy!" I tried again as I continued to press on. They had to be here somewhere.